Hi everyone and welcome to the Jeff Buller Show. Today I have with me Elma Beganovich, and she is part of the team at Amra and Elma, which is known as one of the top influencer marketing agencies in New York City. So before we have a chat with Elma, I would like to just tell a little bit about what Elma's been doing in the last few years. Elma leads Amra and Elma's efforts in building a list of the world-renowned partners and clients. Her expertise includes identifying roles that Amra and Elma can play for a variety of brands in different industries, as well as developing terms and scope of those partnerships. She holds a BA in Government and French from Georgetown University, and also has done a little bit of law from the Miami Law School in 2011. She attended Georgetown University and did Securities and Financial Regulations in 2012, and is a New York barred attorney. Ms. Beganovich is one of the top New City's lifestyle influencers with over 1 million followers across the social channels. She's been named as a leading influencer marketing expert by Forbes, Business Insider, Financial Times, Entrepreneur, and the list goes on. Her clients include Fortune 500 companies like Johnson & Johnson, LVMH, Procter & Gamble, Uber, Nestle, HTC, Away, and more. So welcome to the show, Elma. I've been really looking forward to having a chat with you, and I want to find out how this all started.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It's been quite a whirlwind of a journey. It started actually, so in late 2012, before Facebook pages even existed, if if one can believe that. But it started late 2012. Essentially what had happened is that, at the time there weren't that many do-it-yourself blogs. And so what we would frequently have discussions, with our internal circle of friends was, a lot of the content that was at that time pushed out by Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, so all these lifestyle magazines, wasn't very relatable. So meaning that, your, average woman couldn't spend thousands of dollars on skincare or hundreds of thousands of dollars on plastic surgery. So basically what had happened is that Amra sat up one night, all night, and tried to figure out code. So tried to basically set up our, blog, our first blog on Blogger at the time. So Blogger, as you probably remember, was, kind of competitors with WordPress. And so she, sat up that night and, kind of was struggling with HTML, CSS to customize her blog. And so essentially she did. And we started then also like Twitter and Facebook pages essentially came out as well. I think it was that year, or maybe early 2013. But, and then, we started basically generating, I think within the first 3 months, the blog had over 100,000 unique monthly visitors. And that was when we had Deborah Lipman, Rodial, and Paris Hilton, she had her own line of purses at the time, approach us to do basically a collaboration on exchange basis. And that's when we figured, okay, I think there's something here, this could very well be a business.
Right, so what year was that?
So this was late 2012.
2012, okay. So you actually leapt into the social media space before it became pay to play. So you actually you got in just in time to start building an organic audience, because the pay to play and advertising and Facebook going public was in about 2013, 2014. So
Right.
what social media platform did you initially focus on when you started in 2012, Elma?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, we were one of the first, at the time, the term influencer marketing wasn't really coined as a term, not an industry, marketing industry term anyway. So we started a little bit with Twitter. And then Instagram, yeah, like I said, we were one of the first influencers there. Again, it wasn't at the time called an influencer, but I remember when we were there was basically no one there. And I remember just, posting and putting hashtags, and, my sister and, business partner, she just, was basically kind of pushing me in the direction. I think she was a visionary in that sense. And she said, I think there's something here in terms of Instagram. So yeah, we started like very, very early on. I don't think like either of us, I don't think actually anyone in the world understood where social media was going at that time, because the sentiment was still, is this just for college kids? um
Yeah.
kind of didn't take it seriously. So yeah, we just dove in very early in terms of content creation.
Yeah, and that I think was, good visionary in terms of what Amra did, because if you'd leapt in maybe 2 or 3 years later, it would have been much tougher to actually build that audience. And because for me, the same thing. It was Twitter was my main go-to. I leapt into the other ones as well, like Pinterest even, and Instagram and Facebook. But Twitter was where I built an audience the most quickly, because it was actually the best and most organic way to grow distribution for me and where I was playing. So you start in 2012, you've wrestled with building a blog, and you've signed up Paris Hilton. So what happened after that initial start? So you get 100,000 views on your blog. You're going, all right. So had you all left your day jobs by then? Because you were working
Yeah.
as a lawyer. Is that correct?
Yes. So it was very, I was working part-time and I was going to school full-time, and it was very um stressful in the sense that, my sister, like I said, she was the, visionary, and she was pushing me, and she said, when will you have the opportunity? You're young, you don't, have a family, and, you're not, basically, there's no place that just kind of, you know, holding you down. There's opportunity here, digitally. So we had obviously a long talk about it, and like I said, these brands had started approaching us. So essentially, yeah, we decided, bravely, basically to, leave our jobs and give ourselves, 1 year to figure it out in terms of the business model and digital media and how it all worked, because we hadn't come, from the traditional advertising backgrounds. So, like you mentioned in the beginning, so, I'm a barred attorney, and Amra was at the time she's an economist working on World Bank projects. So yeah, it was quite something, new. I think we were lucky in the sense, because as our following, evolved, basically as it grew, we got offered, I remember our first paid paid sponsor post was actually just $99.
Right.
And I remember, yeah, Amra actually running, and calling me, and she was very excited. I didn't understand the commotion, and she said, we got offered $99 for a tweet from a startup. It's a startup, basically, app that at the time Coachella was going on, and they wanted to announce all the different events at Coachella. So basically the users could check out the events and register for the events. So she said, to me, and I understood at that time, if we can make $99, we can make a lot more. So this was basically the start of it. So we started as influencers, and essentially, we obviously kept growing. And so we outgrew the startup brands and the small businesses that we were working with. So they could no longer afford us in terms of advertising dollars. So they asked, the repeated question was like, well, how can we continue working together? And could you, they were obviously looking for opportunities and cost-effective opportunities. They said, well, do you think you could replicate your own success in terms of grow our own social following and open our, social media accounts and manage them? And so, Amr and I stayed quiet for a while, but after we saw, so this was like a repeated request, we said, why don't we give this a try? Again, unknowingly kind of signing ourselves up for, to be a marketing agency, essentially. And we didn't even understand, like I said, that we were going in that direction. But yeah, that's how it essentially happened. And then, as we also, got basically grew our portfolio, we encounter bigger clients. So then of course expanded the scope of the campaign and essentially went from social media management and content production to influencer marketing. And that area obviously, ballooned, and it's just, from influencer trips to events to branded content to, influencers now have their own lines with brands. So yeah, it just basically expanded.
So you've basically worked in industry that, or started in working industry in 2012 that didn't exist essentially 10 years ago.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's very hard for a lot of people to understand this strange world in which you especially have grown up in. I'm a little older, uh, and when people ask me what I do, I said, well, I need to tell you a story first, otherwise you're not going to get it. So especially if you're talking to an older generation, or just trying to explain, like, how do you make money out of being a blogger? How do you make money out of being an influencer? So you girls stumbled into it. You left high-paying jobs and training that is very traditional, okay? Studied economics, studied law, and here you are running an influencer digital marketing agency in New York. So what were some of the biggest challenges you had? You've identified the opportunity, you have gone, something's happening here, and of
Sure.
course that's always encouraging, isn't it, when something's happening? and and you're going, all right, so what were some of the challenges you struck along the way in terms of dealing with clients, growing the business, some of the changes such as Facebook going very much the way of paid advertising rather than organic reach? What was some of the biggest challenges for Amra and you?
Sure. There was, obviously more than one challenge we were facing. I think one of the, when I'm asked, and I'm often, well, what's one of the regrets, if you have regrets? And so it's not necessarily a regret. It's just, I would say, an advice. I think, for us, since we basically, unknowingly stumbled into this world, I think that we took the longer route. So as I mentioned, we started as influencers, and yes, we're still influencers, but that's not the core of our business. It's, digital marketing, and, that focuses on influencer marketing. But so we, started as influencers, didn't really know, much about this world, didn't know how to put together a proposal, what even the pricing was, right, for different
Mm.
services. So I would advise, if somebody's, starting out, they're looking at this, whatever, business you're trying to pursue, go honestly and work for the CEO and be the executive assistant, right? You don't even need to, take a, more of a intellectual job, if you will, at that company, but go literally be somebody's assistant to really learn ins and outs of the business. So, I had no experience, and neither did Amra in that sense. So it's kind of learning everything from scratch.
Hmm.
And that was, I think, the, kind of the hard way, versus that I would advise, most people, rather than diving into a business, go and, sort of be like an apprentice, and, at, some, like I said, be an executive assistant, carry coffee, schedule meetings, but to really understand, the challenges that, an executive at an advertising agency faces, and, what does the day in and day out look like. So I had no, I had no clue, and just, kind of learned it the hard way. And I think it took us obviously longer than maybe somebody who had, kind of been there, and knew what they were signing up for.
Right. So it's just you and Amra, and when did you start looking at hiring people to help you? Because obviously the challenge
Yeah.
for every entrepreneur is uh, you got to work out how you can actually work not in the business but on the business, and actually leverage yourself, because you can be, I suppose, a one-man band or
Right.
one-person band. So when was it you sort of got to and went, we can't do this all ourselves, and we need to get a little bit more grown up in our approach?
Absolutely. So 2015 was when the real revenue started rolling in, and when obviously we understood there was no way we could we could execute the campaigns ourselves. So we started hiring gradually in 2015, and then really grew in 2016 and 2017. Those were the 2 years that really the business took off. And so yeah, we started hiring. It was I think October 2017 when we got our office in Times Square. So that was, I was really ecstatic about that. I remember just walking down Sixth Avenue and feeling really proud, you
Yes.
know. So as what, like I was 30, 32, and or 31, sorry, you know, when we, you know, got our first office. So that was, you know, exciting, and then started hiring people. And I remember also, like, you know, some of the other, because they asked us, you know, other, like, what are moments that you really felt, you know, good about the company. And it was like, had like the Financial Times reporter come in, and one of their really famous tech reporters, and you know, he came into our office and was talking to us and was really scrutinizing everything we were doing. Of course, as a startup, we're like, we're just waiting to get our computers in, you know, things like that. This looks like a mess. He's like, can I come and see it? I'm like, yeah, come on in. So yeah, there were moments like these, or you know, having like a Fortune 500, you know, he's the deputy CEO right now, but come in from Paris to, you know, just to talk to us and to meet us, and essentially signing them up as a client. So there were, you know, different milestones. I, you know, felt really, really great. Obviously, like I said, there are many pitfalls along the way, like how to hire or how to fire somebody. I remember, you know, my first fire, and that was really, really hard.
Hmm.
And my sister said, I don't want to do it. She said, go into the office early and have a chat with her. So I'm like, all right. So yeah, nobody prepared me. I, you know, had no clue what I was doing. I think there could have been an easier route, but essentially found my way through, paddled my way through. But yeah, so
So you, I think the thing we need that need to understand a little bit more, is, especially for our audience, is uh, influencer marketing. There's a lot of people. Some people actually haven't even heard of it. Everyone who works in digital, of course, has heard of it. So, but influencer marketing is a very interesting space in that you can be the influencer, but you sound like you're also trying to make brands more influential as well. So, if someone approaches you, and this is, you know, it's not one size fits all. So, how do you work with clients? How does that look like? So they
sure.
approach you. So say, look, we want you to work as an influencer agency for us, or digital marketing agency. How does that look like?
Sure. So it depends. Obviously, like you said, there's no one size fits all. We always, you know, scrutinize and look at the brand and where they are in their market. So the market positioning, you know, are they new? Are they a brand that's been around for a long time, a heritage brand, and they need to kind of do a revamp, you know, to basically bring themselves, you know, into, I don't know, you know, basically today, make this current and relevant. So yeah, it depends. But some of the things that we do, you know, it's basically to make you known online, and more specifically, we will engage. So for example, with influencers, you know, we will engage different influencers on behalf of the brand, and so they
Mm-hmm.
could do, you know, anywhere from sponsored posts to being brand ambassadors, which is more of a long-term partnership. And then also influencer trips. So this was, of course, pre-pandemic influencer events. So, you know, hosting an event for influencers, and, you know, introducing them to the product or the new line, what, you know, what the brand is trying to launch. And we could also we do product photography and videos. So everything, of course, is geared toward digital. So if the client wants to, for example, put, you know, they just launched an e-commerce, right? Or they're looking to relaunch the e-commerce site. So they need, you know, like product photography of different skincare products. We do that. Or, you know, if it's fashion, models, and styling, we do that. So essentially, you know, anything that you think of digitally, we do. But like I said, our core is around influencer marketing, and then also creative. We do as well. I should mention market reports. So for companies, you know, companies that are looking to understand how many people have actually even heard of them, right?
Right.
So it's like, oh, only, you know, we found for one client, a healthcare client, you know, 1% of people, you know, we did a sample study for them, had actually known about them. And then we, you know, did an estimate of what it would take from 1% to 25%. They were working within the Midwest region, would take to get to know them. So estimate the cost and ran their campaign through influencers. So yeah, it's different digitally, again, depending on the client, but always the goal is basically to raise brand awareness, to raise website traffic. So if you're looking obviously an increase in traffic, also foot traffic, like in store and brick and mortar, also do follower count. So to increase follower count, that could also be another metric, or engagement, if they have poor engagement on their social channels, we also do that. So yeah, there's a variety of ways that we're also, looking to measure the campaign's performance.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to build brand attention through using influencers that you would collectively, I suppose, curate, hire on behalf of the brand. Is that essentially what you've been doing as an influencer
Yes,
agency?
exactly.
Okay. So now this is an interesting part to it, because influencers, a lot of them do have a lot of organic reach. Sometimes they've got stronger engagement. In other words, they might only have 30 or 40,000 followers on Instagram, but they have a lot of engagement. How do you see the role of both the organic reach of an influencer plus adding and supercharging it with paid advertising? How does it work in that space, influencer marketing?
I think that's a really interesting question. So we always look at although influencers don't charge per their engagement rate, we always, it's typically through the size of the influencer. We always look, and that's how we suggest to our clients, influencers that have a very high engagement rate. So great engagement rate on Instagram, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6%, of course, depending on the following size.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger the influencer, of course, is going to be, less of a percentage. But yeah, that's absolutely something that's very, very important, and that we look at, and that, that's how we essentially suggest a list of influencers that we put together for the brands, of course, depending on their criterion and their target demographic.
Right. So to help you manage all this, obviously you're using technology and you're using different platforms. What are some of the technology or platforms that you use to help you both manage and also distribute the influencer message on behalf of a brand? What are some of the platforms that are your
Sure.
favourites that you use?
Sure. So we use, mostly for our clients, we're trying to target millennials and Gen Z. So most of the platforms that we focus on are Instagram, YouTube. We've looked at towards TikTok, but haven't done as much with TikTok. That's been a very much emerging platform.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the crux of the advertising dollars are spent on Instagram and on YouTube. Um, because like I said, we're looking at millennial and Gen Z. That's our, focused target demographic.
That's very interesting. You didn't mention Facebook.
No. No,
Uh,
because yeah, Facebook, like I said, when we talk to our clients, unless they're, looking at an older generation, so older than millennials, we don't suggest Facebook. That's not where the bulk of the community, if you will, that hangs out, surrounding particular industry is, in terms of, again, millennials and Gen Z.
right. I thought that may be the case. It's interesting watching, I suppose, the use of Instagram has just kept growing quite strongly. And a lot of people have moved over from Facebook to Instagram. And I suppose a lot of the millennials going, well, my parents are using Facebook, so that's so old school.
Yeah.
And so, but now that leads to a very interesting, which you mentioned before, a very interesting platform that's emerged over the last 2 or 3 years, has grown rapidly, especially in the last few months. That's sort of platform that is emerging into our global consciousness, called TikTok.
Right.
Now, TikTok, the numbers, for those of you who haven't sort of been reading the news, maybe just turning on watching what's unfolding around the world with this pandemic, TikTok has grown by over 330 million users in just the first 3 months of this year. It's a staggering number. And who would have thought that people that are actually miming to a 15-second video with music in the background would actually be such a popular platform? So now TikTok, I've seen some numbers on this, and a lot of people are moving over. Well, a lot of influencers are big on Instagram. Some of the big hitters and players in Instagram as influencers are certainly getting stuck into TikTok. Can you tell me a little bit about, you must have some really interesting insights into where you think that's going, what's happening in that space?
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of TikTok, it's very interesting. We're also, we're not too eager to rush into any campaigns in terms of push our clients in that direction, because we saw, it was very interesting with Snapchat. So we had, this was 2017, Snapchat was really taking off, and we actually started getting requests from brands about, Snapchat influencers. So, and then Facebook came out, it's just Instagram, with Insta stories, and that kind of killed Snapchat overnight, which was really interesting. So, yeah, with TikTok, what has been really popular are these, especially during quarantine, these challenges. So, there will be different challenges in terms of baking, in terms of, even makeup, in terms of just different, doing different, I don't know, handstands. I'm sure you saw on Instagram as well, the ice bucket challenge, but, things like this. So kind of to make, people have fun. And it's basically where, the campaigns that, we've looked at and that we've advised our clients to do on TikTok. So it would be, for example, influencers who are part of challenge, and they challenge other influencers. And so they kind of, create some fun videos, obviously, to music, and challenge each other. And then they will also challenge their followers, to, and they will use then the followers certain hashtags, and then we can measure metrics that way. But yeah, these are some of the, more engaging, I would say, campaigns that we've seen, and that we've, advised our clients to go in that direction if they were going to use TikTok.
Right. So looking at what the platform's doing, what's working, what isn't, and just doubling down on what's working on that platform. So TikTok is very much one about challenges. Is that the same on Instagram as well so much, or is it mainly TikTok?
So it's mainly TikTok. There have been, of course, challenges on Instagram, but TikTok, since it seems to be like centered around music, about dances, so like I said, influencers will challenge each other. What's been tricky about TikTok is that it's a very young demographic.
Yes, it is.
So, we're careful also to advise our clients, because if they're going after the millennials, it's just a safer bet, if you will, to that they will get a larger, reach in terms of the millennials on Instagram rather than TikTok. And of course, with TikTok, it's the analytic tools are not as advanced as on Instagram. So for us, that makes it challenging, more challenging to measure the effects and the metrics of the campaign, essentially.
Right. So what you're saying is you are being a little wary in your use of using TikTok as an influencer platform at this stage, but you are taking a bit of a watching brief. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. Because, like I said, YouTube and Instagram, they've been around longer, and so with that said, they very developed analytics tools, so that makes it easier for us to measure the effects of the campaign. And like I said, also, at least in the West, it's these are the main platforms that are used day in and day out, by it's just a bigger audience. And we know for sure, in terms of, like I said, the analytics tools, the way, and Facebook has been very good, and so is YouTube, about that. So we can gather for them, in terms of impressions, in terms of reach, in terms of also we can, talk to our influencers and say, what time of the day is it best to post? Like, what time of the day is your audience the most active? Also look at not only the country where your audience comes from, but also the cities where you're, primary. So if we're, for example, one of the calls to action is, go and visit this brick and mortar store, or you can purchase these items at these locations, that we know that the influencers, that they're closer to the target demographic than, that we need to reach some sort of goals, right? So that those tools make it easier.
Right. So we're using platforms such as Instagram and YouTube because they're more grown up in terms of their tools. You've got better data, got better analytics. It's also
Yes.
the ecosystem that surrounds that as well, isn't it? Not just on the platforms themselves, but also the tools that have emerged over the last 5 or 6 years. Because I've certainly noticed that there's a lot of people diving into the tools for TikTok now, and that's it's a bit of a gold rush, and people are building the tools to facilitate TikTok marketing. Now, within Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, and in this particular time with COVID-19 wreaking havoc on the planet a little bit at the moment, we're seeing some really interesting emerging trends on the platforms. One is live streaming, and could you tell a little bit about where you see that sitting at the moment and maybe where that's going to head in the future? Because I just came off a live streaming. I was working as an influencer for a company called InVideo, which is a startup which you can build Facebook ads and Instagram ads very quickly with video. And I did a live stream. So where do you see that sitting going forward? Because everyone's working a lot more virtually. Like even though you're based in New York, you're actually in Indianapolis now, trying to escape what's happening in New York. So where do you see things like live streaming?
Sure. That's a great question. So we're actually very excited about live streaming. We've seen an explosion of live streaming since the pandemic began. So it's been actually very helpful for us and our clients. So what they can essentially do is that they can, be very creative with their content, and they can either, on their own, or they can invite other guests, which could be, other influencers or industry expert, and sort of talk to their customers and provide valuable advice, content, essentially. So whether you are a food brand, you can invite, for example, a chef and do some sort of cooking class on Instagram, right, on Instagram Live, and you can basically advise on different recipes using your products, right? Ingredients. So that, it just lends itself to creativity. Also, for example, health and fitness brands, they've done workout videos. There's been an explosion of, at-home workout videos. So that's been fun. Also, even for design companies as well, inviting in your designers, saying how to decorate, your space internally. It's, obviously people are spending a lot more time at home. So, it's just these kinds of, different ways to reach your audience. And then also what's very valuable about Instagram Live is that you're able to, for example, pin. So whatever your call to action is, maybe let's say you're even saying like shop right now, and 10% of the, purchase of the proceeds will go to a charity that's been hard struck by COVID. So you can also, do different causes. So there's, Live is, it's very powerful. It's very engaging. And I think it's, it's great for brands.
Yeah, that's fascinating to hear because there's nothing like a good crisis to create some creativity, isn't it? It's certainly pushed the edges. I've seen some fun, like I haven't had a haircut for 4 months, for example. I'm going to have one today because we're essentially quite out of lockdown now. And I looked in the mirror the other day and said, Jeff, you need a haircut. And so what other trends do you see, apart from live video, that are being driven by this crisis?
So sure, trends other than live video that we've seen, and I should mention also Amazon which we've been keeping a close eye. Also starting Amazon Live, where it's kind of resembling QVC. And I think they're taking cue. And again, we've been paying attention from WeChat, in China, where influencers are actually directly selling products of brands, which you could technically do on Instagram Live, but I think they still need more tools for that technology to make it, easier for consumers to shop. So that's something I think that's very fascinating to take note of. But in terms of other trends that have been in COVID, I think it's been very interesting. What we've seen, and we've shared that with brands, is that there's been this explosion of online activity. So there's been so Facebook reported that Instagram Live and Facebook Live views have doubled. And so, yeah, there's been explosion. YouTube, I think, also reported, and we actually have an internal report I'm happy to share with you. But YouTube also reported a surge of online activity. But basically you get, as a brand, and right, as a result, some influencers have slightly increased their prices. So we measure that as well, because we work with other talent agencies that represent influencers. And so there's been a slight of increase in price. And we think that's because of the surge in online activity for influencers, at least. But there's just a lot more opportunities for brands in terms of, they're able to basically now have consumers shop online directly. So maybe before, they were, even for smaller businesses, they were dependent on retailers, right? Now, basically anybody can set up their own shop, so long as you have a quality product that you're confident about, that you want to sell. But anybody, there's, barrier to entry is very minimum. So you can use, all kinds of tools. And Instagram also has the now, like, for Insta Story swipe up, which is really, you ask about handy tools, very great for brands, because, they see an influencer that's advertising something and you can swipe up and go directly and buy it. So that makes it really great. I think that, there's all kinds of opportunities, and obviously, for brands just to be very strategic and creative about it, that they can take advantage of this online activity.
So what you're saying is that the e-commerce opportunity that's emerged out of this is something worth certainly doubling down on. And I was interesting walking past a bookstore that had its little door open, and the owner was there. This is about 6-7 weeks ago, and sort of said to her, "Look, can we check your books online?" She said, "No, we don't really have books online." And you could see that they weren't ready for the crisis. And I think what's happening is that, and you've just mentioned it, across a whole range of industries, is that we now have to work out how to make online buying much easier. And look, it has been. Amazon's been the poster child of how to make buying one click, for example. And the other part of Amazon I find fascinating is that it's now turning a lot to things like, it's actually a huge search engine. I think it's really, it's starting possibly to compete with Google as well. In fact, the four horsemen of the digital age, Facebook, Google, Apple, and Amazon. And I'm reading a fascinating book called The Four at the moment by an author called Scott Galloway. And they're actually starting to compete with each other.
Sure.
So, but it's interesting that people are going, well, how to actually do business online a lot better. And we've seen that with online home delivery, for example. I've had a lot of home delivery like you've had, I'm sure, as well. And I'm a crap cook, so really it's home delivery saved me from starvation, frankly.
Technology today, yeah, good.
Luckily, I've got a credit card, so that was helpful as well.
Sure.
So Elma, it's where do you see the whole influencer space unfolding over the next year or two? Like, what would you recommend to businesses that want to hire influencers? And you especially work in the B2C space, don't you, more than B2B, exactly, from my observation. So if a company was going to set up an influencer campaign for B2C, what would your top recommendations?
Sure. So for, for B2C, I think it's really important to, and I can't emphasize this enough, um, start, do not, don't rush into it. Meaning hire somebody, work with somebody who has, who has a lot of experience, because social media is no longer, when we started, it was just kind of post, but, and, give it a go. But there's so many tools now. So when you want to do so much as posting on Facebook, I mean, you can, or LinkedIn or YouTube or, Instagram or Twitter. I mean, there's backlinks, there's tagging options, there's hashtagging options. So, have somebody really who is basically going to sit down and devise a strategy that's right for your business, that's right for your customer. And, and if you don't have a budget, that's okay. Start something small, meaning, even work with somebody part-time. Do not, in terms of influencers, do not rush into it thinking that I'm going to, give it a try for a month or two and see if it works. You won't know. The truth is, because, as marketers know, there's the magic rule of 7. It takes 7 times for a consumer to see your brand in order to make a decision to purchase. So just because someone saw you once, you're not done. It's not sort of like, we'd like to give an analogy. It's like Ferrari presenting itself, maybe unless you're, a fast food, pizza chain, but, Ferrari presenting itself and saying, here it is, now go buy the product. It's just not how the decision making works, right? For even a skincare product that costs $60 or more. So, it takes time, and, be patient. Don't rush into it. Hire somebody with experience. Like I said, even part-time is better than nothing and standing still. And use the social channels and understand your customer and understand what kind of content that they are ready to consume that's created by your brand. So that would be one of my, I think the strongest points would be don't rush in and be too quick to rush out.
Okay, so what you're saying in essence is to play the long game.
Exactly.
Yeah, I heard some numbers a few years ago which said that if you're seen once or twice, your retention rate as a brand is about 2%. If you're seen, 4 to 5 times, your retention rate in terms of people remembering you goes up to over 50%. So it is about playing the long game, whether you're a blogger, whether you're a digital entrepreneur, whether you're hiring influencers. So that's great to hear. Now, there's one other question I did have before we finish up, and obviously you have to go and do quite a creative process with your clients. Could you tell me a little bit about how you do that? Because that area is, everyone's got different opinions on it. So can you tell me a little bit about your creative process when you're working with clients and influencers?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So one of our first steps is to do a research and analysis on the brand, meaning on, what's their positioning in the market versus their competitors, and see, in order to advise them strategically what moves to do and what basically what's going to have the most impact. Also, obviously, brands will tell us themselves their struggles, whether it's like I mentioned, a heritage brand that's been around for a long time but it's kind of outdated. So we need to basically give them advice on how to make them more relevant. That's, for example, and happy to have Taylor as well share with you our case studies, but for EssilorLuxottica, one of our clients, they're the largest eyewear brand in the world. And so they had relaunched transition lenses, which are the lenses that you've probably seen. They go from, light to dark or dark to light, depending on, where you're sitting. But they basically were outdated, definitely not cool with millennials. So we did a campaign with them when they relaunched. So to make them very relevant and cool, they launched new style colors, mirror lenses. So really to make it, more appealing to a younger demographic. So yeah, we go through this process with the brand of basically, carefully. And that's why I mentioned it's really important to do your research and hire someone who understands branding and targeting. So we go through that process with them. And then, the second, obviously, obviously step is to decide on the strategy before executing. So what are they, looking to do? We also set, KPIs. That's really important. Do not launch a campaign as a business or, even as a solo entrepreneur without understanding, your metrics. What are you looking to, how do you measure success, in other words? So as I mentioned before, is it maybe you're doing by impression? Are you counting your followers? Are you looking at the engagement? Are you looking at, the amount of content produced? What is it, that ultimately, how do you define promo codes, sales? How do you define success? So we set, one KPI, sometimes two KPI. I don't recommend doing, too many KPIs. We set the KPIs and then we go into execution. And then after the execution, the final step is actually to do a metrics report. So we, again, go back and look at those KPIs, were they, traffic visits, were they, in-store visits, foot traffic visits, were they, like I said, follower growth, impressions, and so forth, brand sentiment. That's something that's very important to corporations. What are consumers feeling about the brand? So we'll actually go into the comments and analyze the comments of influencers to see has the brand sentiment changed after the campaign. So it's really important as well to do that metrics report at the end, which is very time consuming, but very much worth it. So this is typically the way that we, from start to finish, do campaigns.
Right. That's a good overview to give people an idea of what to look out for and how to approach things. One final question before we wrap it up. So in the middle of this pandemic that we're experiencing now, what sort of changes are you seeing to brands and how they're marketing and advertising?
Absolutely. So one of the major changes that we've seen is cause marketing, right? So I think the statistics are the following, that 56% of consumers will actually stop buying from a brand if they perceive the brand as not being ethical, and that 90% will actually switch to another brand if they see the other brand is actually, they're, engaged in social responsibility. So, we've advised brands and from all sizes to engage in some sort of social responsibility, because that's the way that consumers are making decisions right now. So social responsibility could be as little as to say, hey, I'm going to donate 10% of the sale proceeds to, like I said, a hard hit, a charity impacted by COVID. Or, if you're, for example, fashion brand, you could donate face masks, right? You're in the textile industry, to hospitals. So do something that shows that you care about your community, and you encourage also spending, obviously, with your brand. So it goes hand in hand. So I think that's one of the major changes, I think even post-pandemic, that will stick around, is that consumers are, also looking basically to buy ethically in one way or another.
Right. That's it's been around a while, hasn't it? Ethical, investing as well as causes as a marketing tool. Do you see there's a little bit, if you don't do that the right way, it looks like you're just trying to ride the bandwagon and can be inauthentic?
Yes, I think that, again, as a company, you have to look at it strategically. So within your industry, like, what is it, for example, if you're, takeout, let's say, order food, you're ordering online food, and you're doing delivery, maybe, do something that's, you can donate, for example, some food to, frontline workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So things that, in order to be authentic, stick within your industry, obviously, do something that, is not as, cumbersome on your business, but basically goes hand in hand in what you do anyway. So, you could create hand sanitizers, I don't know, alcohol, for example, in the industry, wine and spirits. So again, just see what goes, hand in hand within your industry, and then take action. And again, to make sure that it's obviously authentic to, to your own mission.
Mm-hmm. That's, it's trying to get that, I suppose, congruence, isn't it? That it actually aligns with your own message. And I think something that also, as if you're the owner of the business, is that you have I suppose, a personal passion about that cause as well. I think that certainly would help, because you
Exactly.
sort of don't want to leap and look, oh, I'm going to back a cause because that's the latest trend at the moment. It's trying to be really, continue to be authentic and also then be seen as ethical.
Exactly.
So, Elma, thank you very much for sharing your story. Sorry, Amra couldn't make it, and it's just great to meet online. And this has been recorded from Elma's end on her phone.
Yes.
Again, technology wins again, because we actually can still do this even though she's in Indianapolis, not New York, and she's on her phone. We just didn't get the video. All you've seen is my smiling, handsome face, of course. But the reality is that we're still able to do this via a phone from somewhere on the planet. So thanks, Elma, for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jeff, so much for having me. It's been my pleasure as well.
Thank you, Elma. It's been a pleasure to have a chat, and
Thank you.
I look forward to actually meeting in real life one day when the world maybe gets back to normal, if it ever does.
When it gets better. Yeah, I think so. I think with a vaccine, definitely. Yeah, if you're in New York, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, to meet our offices now, at least for now, in Times Square still. So yeah, we'd be happy to have you come in. Yeah, when, when things ease up a bit. But yeah, thank you
yeah,
so much. Like it was, you asked really great questions. I'm actually wow. Yeah, they were. I think yeah, they were both very insightful. And then yeah, I like the last part also about social responsibility.
yeah. Well, thank you for raising that, and I think that's really important. What I've certainly seen over the last 3 or 4 months is people actually saying hi to each other as they walk down the street.
Yeah, right.
Um, there's been less road rage, maybe less cars on the road, but I think that we've realised that hopefully we're realising we're all in this together. We need to work together to make the planet the best place possible, because it's the only one we've got, despite Elon trying to get us to Mars as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, not yet. Yeah, we need to solve the problems here
yeah,
first, I feel like,
yeah.
before getting on rockets. But yeah, it was wonderful. And yes, please share with us. I'd love to share this interview also with my followers. So send when it's gone up and live, Taylor, link and your social handles. And yeah, it'd be my pleasure to yeah
Yeah, we'll do all
to
that. We'll
let my followers know and in on this.
Okay. Yeah, well, it'll mostly come out, I think we're the beginning of August
Beginning.
end,
Oh, okay.
mid
Okay,
of August,
sure.
mid-August, so I'll let you know. And look forward to sharing maybe a glass of wine, or a gin's the latest
Yeah.
trending drink at the moment, apparently. So
Sounds
I think
great
I think
to
there's a lot
me.
more I think there's a lot more alcoholics out there now, based upon what's happened, as people have been
Yeah.
trapped in their best friends being a gin or a glass of wine.
Yeah, we've seen that. Yeah, we've seen
But
except
anyway,
yeah, the bars, their sale, the brand sales are down, but overall, yeah, like private sales, yeah, are up. But yeah, so great speaking with you. And I actually have like at 7 p.m. I have
uh,
one more call before my day's over.
okay.
But yeah,
Thank you, Elma. It's been a pleasure, and enjoy your evening.
thank you, Jeff. You too. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.